Salsa time. Hey guys, today we're going to talk about making salsa. Alright, I got most of my ingredients here. Tomatoes, peppers, onions, little baby onion, my garlic, and then of course measuring cups, salt, and all that different stuff. So what I'm going to go through here, my wife had already got this process started, thank goodness, because it takes a while. We had a whole bunch of tomatoes, and that's just some extras the boys picked today that we hadn't used yet. And so she had already got most of the process done with the tomatoes, and that actually takes some time. And as you can see, we got that is actually condensing down, right? Because we like our salsa a little thicker. Now you might like it thinner, and that's the nice thing about salsa. Is you kind of can do whatever you want. You just keep going, keep trying stuff till you find one recipe you really like. Okay, so to start, tomatoes, right? You pick your tomato. Now we have to get the skin off. As in anything else, it all got to be washed, right? This all came out straight out of our garden, and it has to be washed before you eat it. Even if you don't put like a 7 or anything on your plants, like I didn't this year, but there's also dust and chemicals and everything else that in floating through the air that need to come off. So make sure you wash first. Okay, so for your tomatoes, in order to get that skin off and to prepare them to get them to that point, first thing you're gonna do is you want to cut an X on the bottom of the tomato. Okay, once you get that done, you can see I've got a boiling pot of water here. Make sure you have your water boiling, and you're gonna stick your tomato in there for 1 minute. Up to 1 minute. You don't have to the whole minute. You also need to have ready, I probably should add more water, but as I was preparing for this, my water kind of boiled down a little bit. I had it a little higher. So anyhow, you're going to let this sit, and then I'm just going to keep rotating this for about a minute, and then we'll be on ready for the next step. 1 minute later. Okay, so you can see kind of there it's starting to peel. So then what you want to do is you want to take it and stick it in a bowl of cold water. Some people like to use ice too, which will make it go a little faster. Now I will tell you at this point in the video that Jess is more of our salsa queen, to say, as compared to me. She does it 10 times more than I do. But with it being a long process and you only have a certain amount of time, and she had to work tonight, I am getting to work on it tonight. So anyhow, let it cool in there for just a little bit, and then once it's cooled down, you can take it over here, and that skin will easily peel off. Okay, and you'll go through the whole thing. Okay, just like that, right? The whole thing's depeeled. You're gonna have stuff on the bottom, stuff on the top. We're gonna take care of that in a minute. We just take this stuff here, and it goes into our bucket for the chickens. Okay, so the next thing you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to core it. And by that I mean this center core of where the stem grows, excuse me, and of course the inside seeds will have to be taken out. And so with doing that, you're just going to take your knife, and I'm not going to be able to do both at the same time, and you're going to cut all the way through like this. And I think they also have coring things or whatever, but I like to do it by hand. So I'm going to do that quick, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so we're back in business. As you can see, got the core out, the stem part, and then I ended up splitting in half, and then you got to take the seeds out. You can see here it's full of seeds. Most of that is just liquid stuff that isn't actually very good for this process. I mean, I don't think it helps. I mean, maybe if you keep yours in there, those of you who do salsa and you think it's better, leave a comment in the comment section below so we can get that figured out. But anyway, so I take all the seeds out, and it doesn't take too long. And of course, it doesn't have to be perfect, but once that's done, then you're going to take it And what the wife said she did is actually just blended them all together, made it nice and easy. And so we just used the blender there and blend them together, and that's how you get that. Okay, so that's the point we're at now. So now we have a recipe book, one that actually, I don't know if we just picked that up to the store or what, but Blue Book Guide to Preserving. And so we have a recipe in here, and the one we're using actually is this Fiesta salsa here, but we're not actually using that recipe, kind of winging it. Some of it we don't have, some of the types of peppers we don't have, and so we're just kind of, I'm going to basically go off of it, and then we'll do it our way. Okay, so as you look at the different peppers, kind of like we had to core the tomatoes, peppers we had to do the same thing, similar thing for, except we don't need to hot water bath them. So I have the 3 stages here of peppers basically. Whole pepper, freshly washed. First thing we got to do is cut this stem out and the seeds, right? And as you can see, this one here, I've cut that out, and there's our stem, right? Then after that, I just cut the bottom stem part out, and I try to leave it there as much as possible, but you got to clean it up. And then what I'm actually going to do, and you can see these have all been cored, that one and then this one too. I'm actually going to let these dry and see if I can save the seeds. We'll see if we can plant them next year. All right. Another thing, the next thing here, we got an onion, and this is, it seems like a small onion? That's because it is. So when we went and did our garden, everything that was really small, not really worth hanging, I guess, we let sit, and then we just got them in a bag. So I'm using these up first. It's going to take a little longer, obviously, to cut them up or whatever, but we don't like anything going to waste. So then garlic. So you're going to get your garlic, whether you buy it from the store or you grow it. It's going to come in a ball like this. Now, and I'm kind of doing this for beginners, but each of these balls is going to have a whole bunch of those little garlic pieces in them. And then you've got to take and flake off the skin and to get a piece of garlic. Then that outside skin here, that's all got to come off, and that takes a little more time. I find it easiest if you cut the bottom side off first before you go to clean it. And as you can see, like on these, I've already got that bottom side cut up. Now, when we go ahead and do like peppers, this is again where you get to kind of choose your own sizing. I'm going to do this through the camera, so I already kind of started chopping these. I myself prefer bigger chunks. You know, you find some salsa where you can barely even see the peppers or anything else in them. I prefer a little bit bigger chunks. Not huge, but just something like that. Right? So I've got something to eat with it. And also when you boil this, they're going to shrink a little bit too. When you do onions, it's kind of the same way. And it's going to be a preference thing for you on size wise and everything else. If you want a little bit less onion, do a little bit less onion, or a little more, a little bit less garlic, more garlic, so on and so forth. You're going to have to pick. My suggestion, I guess, would be to pick a recipe that you think you might like, and then do it as close to the original as possible, and then adjust after that, and then find the one you really like. Okay, so with the garlic here, I've got a few that are cut. This one here, sorry, cut that one too. And so what we end up doing is you can chop or whatever you want with your garlic. We actually have this little garlic press thing. So set it there. Put some of your garlic in. And then you can press your garlic through, right? And get your chunks of garlic. And then just keep at that until, so you can see I still have some in there. Kind of moved out of the way. Do it again. And that way we get small little chunks of garlic, not real big chunks, and that's a fairly easy way to do it. Like I said, you can chop, splice, or basically whatever you want to do. Now, I'm going to go ahead, I'm not going to show you obviously me cutting all this stuff up, otherwise this would be like a 2-hour video because it takes a long time, and my boy stopped me in the middle of it a lot. But what I'll do is when I get it all done, I'll come back and show you, and you can kind of see some of our onions here, some more of our peppers. We got some hot peppers here too that I'm going to actually add some of that into, just make it a little bit spicy. Not too terrible, because me and Bo are the only ones that really like too much spice. So anyways, when I get everything chopped up before I add it in, I will come on back and show you. Okay, so after a very long time, took me a long time to get this stuff up. I've got everything cut up that I need to cut up, and I put it all in this bowl, and you can see, of course, make sure your hands are clean before you do this. But I got my peppers and onions and garlic, and one of the things I actually called for was cucumbers, so ran out to the garden, cut some of those, and put those in as well. One thing you want to make sure of, like this called for some hot peppers, which I put in. Didn't put quite as much as it said, just because of, you know, the spicy factor for the rest. But make sure that if you are cutting up or handling any sort of spicy pepper, wear gloves, or just make sure you wash your hands before you touch anything. I didn't wear gloves, but I made sure that I washed my hands before I touch anything, because you will burn yourself. it does get pretty spicy. So anyhow, once this is all done, as you can see, mix this. This stuff's still been simmering. Now this has been simmering for a long time, to take that down, to take some of the liquid out. And when I say simmer, I mean very, very, very low. You don't want it to go too fast, because of course it'll burn and it'll dehydrate it way too quick. That's something you don't want. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we can grab all of our vegetables and put them in. Okay, now all I gotta do is mix this in, and then I've got to add a few other things. Their recipe, I believe, calls for some vinegar and salt and everything else. And so once I get this all mixed in, I'll add that in too. And then I think it says to boil for 30 minutes. I gotta check anyways again, but boil for 30 minutes, and then we can start putting it in jars, which is a whole nother process. So once I get that all set up and ready, I'll show you that as well. Okay, so for a clarification, I checked it, and you boil it, bring it to a boil, and then you bring it back to simmer for about 10 minutes. And so now in the meantime, what I had done, you can look back here, I've got my lids and my temp. I got keep about medium. What that does basically is it makes sure your lids are clean, which they were washing in the dishwasher before, but then it also softens that lip, that orange reddish lip around, so that when you go to seal it, it'll seal better. And then I also cleaned my jars, and I put them in the heat to help sanitize them and heat them up. Okay, so now put that out of the way. I'm going to take, and try not to drop my phone in the hot, take this whole thing out, and this is called water bathing. We will also talk pressure canning when I show you green beans, and then this will go back in to be ready for the jars to go in. Whoop, that went good. water bathing is good for stuff that's high acid, but for things low acid like green beans, it's not good for it. And that is because it doesn't, if it's low acid, it doesn't kill all the it doesn't always kill all the germs in it, so that as it sits, you can actually have a higher chance to get botulism when you eat it, and that's not a good thing. But with higher acid stuff like this, obviously, the high acid will kill it and keep you from getting botulism. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I need to fill my jars. One thing when you're doing jars, you want to check the lips here. Run your finger around, and again, always keep your hands clean and everything else, and make sure there's no crack in the lip, because if there is, it won't seal and you'll have wasted into the jar. And then also, of course, you want to check the sides of your jars and around the jars, make sure there's no cracks, because it's the same thing. Now, I will tell you that occasionally you will still lose some jars. I mean, that's just, especially when it comes to the pressure canning side. You can occasionally have them crack anyways, no matter what you do, and that's just kind of how it is. But most of the time, as long as you do it correctly and you check your jars, you're not going to have any you lose. Okay, so I really need to get something to have this camera on my head or something. Now, what we're going to do now is we'll mix it up a little bit. You can see it there. It's fairly thick. And it helps to have a food funnel. I have one somewhere, I just not sure where. But we're going to go ahead and fill our jars, and you want to leave about a ½ inch of headspace. What headspace is the airspace, basically, from the top of what you're canning to the top of the jar. Now, one of the nice things, roughly, if you fill it up to that the glass line that's around the bottom there, that will give you your ½ inch of headspace. Okay, once that's done, you want to take a rag and you want to go around the edge and make sure that there's no salsa or whatever else you're canning around the edge, so that you get a good seal. Now, they also make magnets, which I used to have, and I have no idea where it's at, to help you grab these jars, or these lids. So I just use a fork, and it's a little hot, but not terrible. I'm going to take it out. Whoops, sorry. I'm going to take it out, flip it on. As you can see, these were already at 2020, they're getting reused. Then you take your lid and you tighten it down. And the way that I do it, you don't want to go super tight, because that'll make so it doesn't seal, is I go until it's snug, and then I give it one more, I'm going to do this off camera, one more little quick twist, and that's all you need. You don't need to crank it down, because then, like I said, you can ruin the seal. So this one's done, and then it just gets put right into And that's hot. It gets put right into the canner while you're doing the other ones. And just be careful so you don't burn yourself. Like that. Okay, and you want to try to make sure these stay up. I know it's kind of difficult, and I'll fix that as I go here, because that way you can lift it off easier. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fill the rest of these, and I'll show you before I close it up. Okay, the first batch is in. You can see this will fit 6, and it'll actually fit 6 quarts also. You can also see that the water is just a little bit above those jar lids. So we'll put the lid on, and then we're going to process this for 15 minutes. And then after 15 minutes, we'll take them out, it'll be done. So I'm going to go ahead and get the next batch started, because as you can see I still got quite a bit. And then I'll show you when I take these ones out. And the first batch is done. Pull them up, hook them, and carefully take them out. And then I just take a towel for myself, fold it in half, and set them on it to cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going here, and I'm going to finish the rest of that out, and then I will show you our final product. And we're done. So I ended up with 12 pints out of that batch with just a hair left over, and the boys tasted it and told me that it was okay, it was edible. One thing that did happen, which kind of stinks, but I'm glad I did so I could show you. When I was heating up the second batch of jars, I took them out to fill them, and one of them lost the bottom. Now, this is one of the good reasons why you preheat, so that way you don't lose. Or if you do have a bad one, it can possibly show up at that time. I would much rather do it then than after I'm all the way said and done, and lose the salsa. So hopefully this, I know it's a long video, hopefully this was educational, hopefully this helped you. If you salsa makers who've been doing it forever, any other tips or tricks that you have, or even recipes if you want to put them on there, go ahead and leave that in the comment section below, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Oh, one last thing. So, you'll know when they seal, because this top part here, it's sticking up, will pop down, and you'll actually be able to hear it. To me, that's a very satisfying sound to hear, because then you know they're sealing. As I was getting the second batch ready, that first batch there was popping off. So, but just you'll listen for that, and then if for some reason something went wrong, or you had a bad lid or a bad jar or something, it won't pop, and then you'll push it in and out here. After a while, you gotta give it a while. Some people say 24 hours, but it shouldn't take that long. But then, of course, if it doesn't seal, then it's no good. So I just wanted to say that. I kind of forgot about that during the rest of the video. So, all right, thanks for watching, guys.